Welcome back to another episode of G&G News. Big shout out to Jello. We've got him here after a little break, and we have returned to obviously review the first of the sequels, The Force Awakens. So, first of all, my friend, how are you today? How have you been?
Yeah, I kind of had a week off because of the dreaded COVID came and bit my family. So I had that. But yeah, all good now. Lost my voice. So as I said, but yeah, all good now, all cleared up. And yeah, raring to go on these sequels. It's gonna
Yep.
be an interesting one. It is.
Why do you think it's going to be interesting? Because I thought it was mad how I was saying to you earlier on before we did this. It only was 10 years since in real time since the Revenge of the Sith to obviously the Force Awakens. So it was only actually a 10-year gap. But for me personally, I don't know about for you. It felt like an age when they came out with new Star Wars content. I've never been so hyped just for a trailer because I was just like, we have new Star Wars content.
Oh, when this trailer, the Force Awakens trailer dropped, I was literally repeat. I went literally because we were so starved of it for ages, and yeah, we had the buyout, but previously to then, it was still like when is it going to happen? And the trailer for I actually don't like. I like the trailer for this. I think it's really cool. And I think it's it's a very modern Star Wars trailer, of course, but it does kind of grip you of like Star Wars is coming, and it's we get the first introduction of Finn, the stormtrooper coming out and revealing
And the
himself, and it's
first
like,
look
oh, what's going on?
and the first look of the stormtroopers, obviously, being
Yeah, First
reminiscent
Order,
of
yeah, yeah.
to the sorry, they're so similar in that sense. Being so close together, it was good to see the helmets. I
Mm.
think as well from like the first trailer, and this is actually true as well. That trailer made me review movies. I watched that trailer that much to the point that I was making predictions of the movies. I'm gonna put a link after this so you guys can see
Mm.
what I thought was going to happen in this movie. I've seen probably three trailers, and then in my own head, I kind of like created the story, and I was like, yeah, it's gonna pan out this certain way. It really didn't happen.
But what in your head was it a better story than we
Yeah,
got?
yeah, yeah. Of course, of course. And what happened, is a better story than what I thought. So I've made some notes. So first of all, what did you think of like the whole new aesthetic that they had put onto Star Wars? Obviously, being under the moniker of Disney. What did you think first of all before you even seen it, knowing that Disney have now got control of Star Wars in that sense?
um
What was your
this is probably going to be
expectations?
controversial because they were saying the right things. They were saying everything a fan would want to hear, and any what they were saying enough to grab any new fans who like Disney and maybe were like Disney. Oh, Star Wars is now Disney. So they were saying everything right. All the casting made sense. We had I remember that photo of the casting crew and they were doing lines. So it had all the news ones. That was interesting. And
Yeah.
then we had all the OT there. Oh, they're bringing them back, but we're going to get this new fresh blood introduced as well. And I was quite excited. I mean, because I thought, but we didn't get. I thought it was going to be a very entwined mix of like
Yeah. New and
everybody
old.
together,
Build it
yeah, as
together.
as one, and then lead into phasing out the OT, so the new guys could take over and run for another 10 years.
Yeah.
And of course, we didn't get any of that. So
So I think probably because I used to watch a lot of talk shows, so Harrison Ford kind of spoiled the movie a little bit for me before it initially came out because he went on to talk shows and said he'd only signed on for one movie, which
mm,
then left this hole in my heart of well, he's like I don't want to spoil this for anybody, and please don't watch this unless you watch the film. When later on, what happens to Harrison Ford's character that kind of always stuck in my head when first initially going to see the film because he had said I'd only signed on for one film, and pretty much Disney had kind of hounded him to the point of being like, "Would you take this offer? No. Would you take this offer? No." And Disney are kind of like the unlimited bank, so they're like, "Okay, what
mm.
if we double your initial offer of what you wanted?" And Harrison then signed on for the movie. So it 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 felt nice seeing the older characters, but one of my biggest gripes with this film was there was too many callbacks to the OG movies, and I don't think
The-
they paid any sort of love to the prequels.
No, if you have to put this in one stage, and I know I will break this down, but how lazy this writing is, because
It mirrors episode
it
4.
mirrors it mirrors,
The Navy
like A
story.
New Hope. It's literally, let's be lazy, and I understand why they did it in a way, is because they wanted to play safe. Now you can play safe, but they
I
just kind of
understand
just
that with
went rip it
building
off. But so there was a lot I could forgive about this movie,
Okay.
because it was a good setup. Now we're going to the last Jedi and the next week, but everything was set up to it. So I can forgive Starkiller Base. It doesn't make sense. There's a lot of it doesn't make sense. Like the original idea that got pitched, and I think I've told you off screen before, is there was going to be, like, Han was supposed to be there, Luke was supposed to be there, and it was a hunt for somebody has stolen the Millennium Falcon.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the hunt for not Luke, but the hunt for the Millennium Falcon. Yeah. And of course, Rey gets involved and all that to hunt and help hunt it down.
Yeah.
Looking back, that might have been a better story, because that was the pitch to all the toy companies, is when they were doing the toy things, is that's your pitch. That's the storyline. So they get a feel how to build the ships and everything. But
I also personally think with a lot of the marketing that we got, and now looking back at the movie, all of the most watchable parts of the movie were in the trailers. So essentially, I would say every fight sequence, not obviously in full, detail, because they have to leave something to the imagination to get you to come and watch the film, but a lot of the actual plot points of trailers nowadays, and I would say, especially with the newer Star Wars movies, kind of led the plot, especially in the sequels, in a different trajectory to what the actual movies had planned out to be. Like one big thing was, and I still believe like it was faintly written in there, and I guess maybe they had issues with bringing it to fruition, that Finn clearly showed some sort of ability with a lightsaber, because it's one of the points I wrote down, because for Kylo Ren to be a Sith or whatever he's considered to be at this moment in time, how did Finn manage to hold his own for, I know it wasn't for a long period of time, but he held his own for a brief period of time. I like the ominous music that they played at that time, because it was made to see, like, Kylo to Finn was kind of like Jaws to human.
Yeah.
But he managed to hold his own for a certain period of time. Now, that to me personally, if you don't have any ability with the Force, how I would see it is, if I'm a normal person in the galaxy and I pick up a lightsaber, and I've never used a lightsaber before, you're just going to give me one swing because you're trained in the.
But it's not even that. It's the whole thing. Okay, I know he's not supposed to be a Sith, so he's a dark side user, but he has the ability.
He's trained within using a lightsaber, right?
Yeah, but even that, he's trained as a child under the supervision of Luke, so he's been not just been observed. So he's not just had lightsaber training. Let's not lightsaber training. Kylo Ren shouldn't even had to have ignited his saber. He could have just used the Force, grabbed him there, smacked him in the face, threw him against the tree. Who's next? That's a Force user. None of them have got focus. Like, okay, you can play on when Rey calls for the saber, it comes to her. But apart from that,
I've got a big thing about that as well.
Yeah, but apart from that, you've got somebody who is shown all the way through the movie as this powerful user. He can read minds. He's like he can stop. He's really strong.
Blaster. He stops at this is one of the things I want to get into, right? So we were talking about Force abilities. Now, yes, I love the prequels, and I understand they use the Force run ability. We never seen it again. Okay, but I can kind of let that go, because at that moment in time, it was kind of needed to usher the plot forward. With this, my whole thing with Kylo Ren, why I don't like him as a villain, was his whole plot point of why he was played. He was trying to be a shadow form of Vader. He couldn't live up to the expectations of Vader. No one feared him. No one respected him. So obviously how he was played was this big, powerful character that we never really seen to be powerful. So he seemed to me like a child throwing a tantrum throughout most of the movie. How he tries to intimidate his own men. Even at the start with the blaster, that was just for intimidation purposes of like for Finn of you know, like they had their weird lock
Mm.
eyes kind of moment. One of my other big plot points that I found with this movie, I don't know if it did for you, Finn's turn from the Empire to, I know it's not the rebels, but you know, the good guys, where else we like to call them?
Resistance.
Resistance, sorry, the resistance.
Yeah, because it's such
That
a
was
difference.
5 minutes, and then we find out later on that didn't really make any sort of sense to me, that he gets put on a battlefield and he didn't. I know he didn't fire his weapon, but the First Order kind of seemed weak at that moment, because if that was Vader and the Empire, you refused to fire your weapon, you probably would have. That probably would have been the end of you.
Yeah, but it's just stupid. Like, I like Finn, but his backstory is a bit stupid because at the end of the movie he's like, I'm maintenance. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why is he in First Order uniform? If he's a maintenance person, wouldn't he just be in
Oh, you just brought
uniform?
up a very big plot point for the next movie. He changes his job in the next movie. He's on sanitation. That's
Yeah,
how he.
sanitary, yeah, or maintenance or whatever it is. Yeah, it's something like that, isn't it? But it's just like,
No, but
well,
that's just
why would you be if you're going to be a first? You're going to have. I'm just thinking military here.
yeah.
If you're
They
going
have
to have a
different
military
divisions.
organization, and like I've said before, I've just been in the Royal Air Force. You
Mhm,
have the mechanics, and
mhm.
they have normal uniform, and then you have the soldiers, and they have a different set of uniform
Of course,
because one's for working,
and they
and
have
what, and then,
specific.
like, why would you have that? And
And
it's
why?
just
And furthermore, why would he then be on the front line if he wasn't part of that
yeah,
particular regiment or squadron or whatever it would be called? Because that kind of just shows that the First Order really doesn't have a lot of troops. Because it's like, yeah, he
no.
does sanitation, he cleans the windows of Death Star, I mean Starkiller Base, and all, but we'll have him on the front line. So yeah, a
The
lot of
whole
people.
First Order thing, and I don't. I'm going to say it is stupid. It is the most stupidest concept out there because if you go for what we had, and everybody, I know it's not probably not canon now. Everybody has this fear if they're from the Empire who now fallen of. There's a guy who just took out Vader and the Empire. That's their rumor. So anybody else is going to flee. All the TK units are going to go, and then in this, for some reason, they rebuild under the nose of the now New Republic, and it just doesn't make sense. It's just like that would never happen. I would have liked to have seen this as you just said, that the First Order, if they're going to be called the first, is so limited in numbers,
Yeah.
but they're so hardcore, and they have constricted or kind of taken these young people to try and up their numbers, and that's why there's conflict in between them.
Yeah,
That
because
would have
that
been a
wasn't
much good story,
never
but
really.
they needed this old group of men
Mhm.
leading them from the Empire who are still hanging on to
It's
things,
just
not
the
having
remnants of the
Hucks.
empire
Yeah,
recycled into something new.
and
Because
then you just got Hux who just shouts that,
yeah,
okay, you're trying to make him this, I don't know, this from the Second World War,
and the other
like
thing as well I
Nazi, and
found
you're
with a
like,
lot of them characters, like with General Hux, I don't generally like him as a character, but I also feel like how he was played, for him to command the position that he had, it would have been nice to have some sort of backstory of who the hell he was. Because when he initially just started shouting, I was just like, well, you're just some random NPC that's part of this empire-esque
yeah,
escapade.
they should have made him this great tactician. That's why he's young and he's got into the position he is, because he's such a great tactician. But everything he does, he just shouts.
Yeah.
Let's just shout. And it's just like, what are you doing?
I think
Oh.
Kylo's whole play towards the dark side was played in a comedic sense, to the point that you couldn't really take it seriously. Like when he was trying to intimidate people, same with General Husk, same with First Order troopers, and just in general, like how he tried to come across. And I noticed with somebody who does music, like they always tried to play very ominous music when Kylo appeared. It's just like, you look like someone from Twilight. No disrespect to anyone who likes Twilight, but it's like, you don't look.
No,
He,
he's portrayed all the way through this as an emo teenager, and he acts, and they go, how do we develop this character who is struggling with his conflict? Let's make him like a proper, like, narcissistic teenager who doesn't like his parents. And you're like, is that what you wrote on your paper and went, that's a good idea? It's just like, oh, but if we like, I'm not saying like what we've spoken is looking back on it, but when I remember watching this, every other Star Wars movie, and even to the play of The Last Jedi, immerses you in it. This one breaks my hold of I'm immersed into it 3 times.
This
First time is when they crash land, and then you remember when it sinks and it blows up. But the difference on continuity between the distance between Finn and the explosion is different in 2 different scenes. So he's really close to the explosion, then he's far away. And then the next one is the I don't know what they're going to call it, the capacitor, when she has it upside down and flicks it that way. And I'm like, oh. And then of course the what's the last one? There is another one right near the end.
Which one?
I can't remember. It will come to me. But those, like, there's bits that actually break you out of being in a movie, being in immersed, being in a fantasy land, because there's no continuity. And I'm like, how did you not get that continuity right? And it's just like, oh, it's because it's just a bit bizarre. It's just like it's like lazy writing on top of bad directing, bad acting, and then bad editing. And you're like, oh, and it's just like, that's a shame.
I think I can sympathize with the bad acting because it was a bad plot. So, for example, we could right now, you could name 10 of the best actors in the world. I could name 10 of the best actors or actresses in the world. We could have them all in one room, and I could write an absolutely terrible, terrible plot. It's not going to make the movie any better just because you inserted this person, this person, this person. So I will agree there was bad acting to an extent, but I also feel like when you have a bad plot, you can't polish a turd, as they say.
No.
Some things are kind of just what they are. But
John Boyega is probably the best actor in like his portrayal of it. He does it really well.
I think
well,
it was his best come up as well from what he, because I followed his career from previous movies that he was doing. You know, he went on to do a lot of great things after this. But I also feel with his portrayal, because of bad writing, he seemed like an idiot half the time. You know, in later films, we'll get into it. In later films, he just says the word "raid." So,
I remembered my third point. My third point is the most annoying bit is when Ray's in the tunnel and then she lets them animals out and then looks into the screen and goes, wrong door. Oh, that bit really annoys me because why are you looking at the camera? Why are you looking at it's mid Ray? Yeah. Sorry, I thought it was in the end, but yeah.
Okay, so I got a couple of points here of things that I think need to be improved in this movie for it to reach a higher state. I think one of the biggest things that we needed more backstory of Finn being a stormtrooper and actually not killing people, but doing things that would make him have this like change of heart, because that felt so plot armor of like, we're gonna look at this stormtrooper. All of a sudden now he doesn't want, I keep saying stormtrooper, we're gonna look at this first order trooper. Now he doesn't want to be a first order trooper. Now he's not. I mean, you know, that arc was something that didn't really seem to work for me. So now this is controversial, and if anybody doesn't agree with my opinion, I don't blame them. But anyways, Han Solo's death to me felt comical to the point that it was just put in place. I've just watched this movie 3 hours ago, and the words that were said for the death scene for me personally didn't, one, feel warranted, two, feel earned, and it didn't really make a lot of sense because, you know, he said, what was the words that Kylo said? I don't know if I have I know what I need to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. So then he just shoots his dad in the chest after his dad then proclaims his love for him. There's about 6 to 7 people who are just stood there watching. Everybody screams no. Chewie then decides to not kill Kylo just out of love for, I would say, Han Solo, because obviously that's his son, because he shot him in the arm. The scene just didn't really have any sort of emotional payoff, and I understand that Harrison Ford was only written into the one movie in that sense. Then, you know, we have other appearances from him later on because, you know, whatever happens, but that literally just, at that point, I put up with so much that I wasn't immersed in the film anymore. After once we had reached that point, I felt like it kind of broke the continuity of what I was watching.
But now, if you think about it, Han Solo got stabbed through the chest, and as we know, you don't die from a chest wound. So if he survived the planet drop and the planet exploding, he could come back. Because you don't die in Star Wars unless you're Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yeah, you don't die in Star Wars unless your corpse is. Well, actually, no, that's not even true because the Emperor is. Yeah, you don't. I don't know. I guess plot armor stays. And one of my other biggest things was the lack of any sort of ability that Rey had showed up until the point of her using a lightsaber, and just how OP she was with a lightsaber and the Force. The fight scene that them two had, like visually, it was a great fight scene to watch. Don't get me wrong, because of the snow and the aesthetic of it. But it didn't seem earned. I didn't really want to see a lightsaber fight in the first film to that sort of magnitude. Even though I didn't think it was one of the better lightsaber scenes, but it just didn't really culminate to making a lot of sense.
If, as you said, you can't polish a turd, but if you go by what we got, like the stupidity of the planet breaking up.
That's what I was just about to say. It was very, extra to that point.
Yeah, it's like, okay, that was convenient, but it would have been
I
so
feel
much
like
better if Rey got seriously injured, and then she has to. That's why at the end we go to see Luke, is because she's got this ability, but she's going to him because look what's happened to me without training. Now that would have made more sense of then her going and then Chewie not going, I'm going to speak to my old mate. I need to tell him about Han. Now that pissed me off because who are you? Like, I'm sorry, but who are you? Like if you think about in the movie sense and the bigger picture, who are you? You're nobody. Luke doesn't care. He wants to hear that his best friend died because from Chewie, not from you.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing as well, I don't know if you know this actually. So we never get, in the movie, we never get an explanation for R2D2's red arm. Do you know why that was done?
It's got to be something stupid for marketing reasons, isn't it? They wanted a difference between.
So I am a big gamer. So they made a movie adaptation of The Force Awakens, and they sold DLC where you play a level where you find out about him having to remove his arm and he gets a new arm, and you and like 6 other droids do this really terrible level that's about 20 minutes long. And that was literally done so they could sell that DLC for The Force Awakens Lego video game. And I was like, but it's not even a good level either.
There's a lot of mistakes on marketing, like BB-8. Yeah, like technically wise, how they did that is brilliant. The toy is rubbish
of a spherical droid because it was different, but it did feel like a younger rehashed version of R2.
Yeah, but the problem is with this movie is what worked with the 2 droids where you have R2 and C-3PO.
They had a
even though you don't understand R2, the back and forth is funny. But you got the back and forth between Rey, who's trying to play a serious character, and this comedic droid that she's not interpreting well. So if they had another interaction with somebody like there are funny bits with him, like I'm not a bit old, but when he does the flame thing and he does like it as a thumbs up to Finn, that is comedic, but that's because they can communicate that back and forth. But because Rey's trying to play this straight character, it doesn't work that comedic sense to them. So I understand why it's there for marketing and the droid looks cool, but it doesn't work with how they wrote in or the script around the droid. It's just like, we got a droid. Yeah. And it's just like that. But then like in this, we have such like we have Finn, missed opportunity. Poe, missed opportunity.
Massively.
And it's just like, okay, he is the rehashed of, you might say Biggs, or you might say like of Luke, or
I was going to say Luke because of how Kylo played the interrogation scene where he's like, I didn't realize we had the best pilot in the Resistance in our midst. So when he said that, I was like, really? It's like, okay.
Then show me how good he is, because at the end he just does this breaking break thing, and then goes into the what they call it. I can't remember what they call it. Something. I can't remember. You know, like the thing they would blow up. No, when he goes into it, and
he jumps into hyperspace to I know what you're talking about, but yeah, I
But
can't.
it's just a stupid thing. But like, you can think about like we got this star killer base. It's the most stupidest scientific wise. If you have to go physics
Mhm,
or even biology onto how that planet would work,
mhm.
it wouldn't.
The
So,
atmosphere,
like, I
exactly.
understand the Death Star.
The second you shoot that laser, everything on the planet is burnt.
No, but it's not even that. Okay, it moves and it sucks the suns. So every time it sucks a sun,
Mhm.
isn't that solar system dead? Because you've just killed every single. So there's no, you can't now live on Starkiller Base without this. What you're gonna have? You're gonna have this like mechanized.
Um,
Yes, I don't know. So it doesn't work, and it really annoyed me because even to the point, when it shoots
mhm.
and it has three come out,
Yeah,
but they're going across the solar system and they directly hit, split, and then directly hit the planets,
yeah.
and you're like,
Doesn't
it's
make any
just
sense.
no.
And it felt like they were rehashing the idea of a Death Star for the third time.
Oh
Like,
no, it's the Death Star, but bigger. And I hate
yeah.
that bit. It's just like, so it's bigger. And I'm like, oh God.
But this is what I didn't understand with it, and something that we've actually avoided talking about, and I think we need to get on to talking about is Snoke. So, what was your first feelings, thoughts, and opinions on seeing him initially in the movie before we got
Well,
into
first you see him as a I must say, when I first
projection
saw it, like you see him as that kind of hologram kind of thing, but
holographic
you
projection?
like it, yeah, yeah. And I was like, is he gonna be like this big giant?
That's
And
what
then
I
of
thought
course I
because
was
when I
like,
seen
what?
it, I
And
was
I was
like, "Is
like,
he like
that's a
the
bit
king of the
weird.
Sith or something?" Because when I seen it, I was like, "This is like
Yeah.
in my head." Because I was just as a Star Wars fan, I was creating stories. I was like, "He must be like some ancient Sith lord from
Mm,
eons ago, or he's like manifested himself as this being or some shit." And then when we were just like, we didn't get to see him apart from holographic projections, but we got no payoff apart from like the right at the end he literally said that speech to make you watch the second movie. It's just I can't even remember now what he said, but it was something along the lines of "Bring the girl to me." Da, da, da. Then obviously we get to
yeah.
see Ray trying to.
It's just he's a missed opportunity because the back story could have been great, and then of course they went into the cloning thing. But if you actually, as you just said, he was on a Sith world. Now we know the Sith solar system is near enough dead, but
Mhm.
they would have had something there, a remnants, a bit of life, and it would have been good if he was like this sleeping giant,
Yeah,
of
would have
the
been
Sith.
yeah, because this whole thing that they kept saying, the whole marketing campaign was, "Oh, do you
Mm,
feel the force? The force has awakened. Have you felt it?
yeah,
There's been a tremble. There's been," and it could have been like, "You just made me come up with a really cool idea." They could have, he could have awoken
yeah.
because of this disturbance in the force,
That's
with
what I thought it
bringing
was going to
mutating
be.
metachlorines across the galaxy, and then he's drawn towards it. They could have made a really good story with that, but then
Mm.
unfortunately we got.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a switch. The awakening is because it goes the dark and the light, and I was like, "You're the dark, awakening the dark in Kylo." Now it would have been good if I don't know, like the reason we don't see Luke is because Ben and him went to one of these Sith planets
Mhm.
and accidentally awoke him. There's your awakening, and then he realizes, well, I've got to knock out Luke somehow. So he, I don't know,
So I actually
ties him
read
up or
comics.
whatever, and then he manipulates Kylo, well, Ben, into being his new apprentice.
Yeah, so I
That would have
actually
been great,
that
but
was
no,
kind
we
of
got
similar to what they were doing in the comics. In the comics, Luke
mm,
comes across Snoke.
yeah,
Snoke doesn't. So I okay, so you know the story then. So
mm,
you know about the whole downfall of like how he pulls Ben towards him and whatever else
yeah,
with Luke and that. I thought that was a way better, especially it was convoluted. I thought that was a way better story, and we could have like broke this into parts because initially, I know they wanted to come back, hard hitting after 10 years and have like this their whole movie, but it felt like for me, this film was designed for a younger audience and to sell toys and to rehash many ideas of the past to kind of fit in with fanboys because I felt like there was four different movies going on within this one plot because
yeah.
there was a lot of like, oh, we'll say that, like, the whole thing with the lightsaber, like, oh, how did you get over there? Oh, next time, it's just like, I want to know now. Who is this woman?
Yeah,
And this is how bad it got, guys. You know when they did the second trailer, right, and they show out outside of Maz Kanata's castle?
mm,
I paused that, yeah, And I looked at every single one of those flags, and I seen a Mandalorian flag. I was like, oh, we're gonna see some sort of. I was literally so hyped for this film. I went to the cinema to watch this, and honestly, I'd never felt, I've never felt disappointed watching a Star Wars movie, but this just did not live up to my hype and
I
anticipation.
say when I first watched it,
Did you go to
to
the
be
cinema?
honest,
Or did you watch it at home?
I went. Oh, I took the day off. I
Okay,
took the day off to go early because I was
wow.
like, I'm not going to get any spoilers. So my girlfriend bought me a ticket, and
I
we
actually
went.
muted Twitter.
And I was like, and I must say, my hype for the trailers made me enjoy the movie more. The second time, I didn't like it. The third time, then it kind of gradually got worse and worse because you start noticing problems with the movie. It's
I
not
agree.
it's not a Star Wars movie.
No,
It looks like Star Wars, but it's an action movie because,
it's got the
as you
Star
say, they
Wars
don't.
aesthetic.
Yeah, because every other one jumps into the Force. This one should have explained the Force more, but they went, no, we'll
They
just
tried to
skip
develop
over it.
characters more so.
Yeah, it didn't even develop characters because there wasn't any development of why these characters knew what they knew and got
Okay,
to
so
where they were. It's like Rey when she learns to do the I don't know, false mind trick on that
yeah, Jedi
stormtrooper.
mind trick, yeah.
Oh,
And it wasn't
how
even
would you
explained.
even know that? Even if how would you even know that was a thing?
Also, on your point of that, yeah, she said in the movie, "Oh, Luke Skywalker, I thought it was a myth." So how would she understand the Jedi mind trick? How would she understand any
Hmm?
of these abilities that she's getting? Like, it's nothing to grapes on Rey, but Jedi's have some form of training. Like, it would have been cool if we then found out for some reason she had a force ghost connected to her, and that's how she learned what she. Because that would have at least made sense in some sort of way. But it was kind of like, okay, this is Rey. She's on the second version of Tatooine, Jakku, and she's got. And I feel like they kind of tried to maybe give her some sort of Anakin esque with the whole
Oh, I don't. I literally I
Tatooine.
don't know because it just got confused on of the Rise of Skywalker. But for this movie, if you just take it as this movie, and we're not going to go into Last Jedi or the other ones because it just confuses this movie,
Mhm.
is that there is nothing there to say she's got any ability or has any
No,
nuance of what the Jedi are. She's heard of this myth.
yeah.
She heard that. So having any what's a false pull? Well, why can't she do that then? A false choke, anything like that. Well, that it should have been there because what you're saying, and with that deadline, I know a lot of people call her a Mary Sue, is it's because it's not earned, but it's not.
She
It's
was
that isn't
wrapped
the
in
problem. It's
proper
just like
armor.
there isn't a book
She
you can. Yeah, it's just what Disney are saying is you can just pick up a book and learn the
Yeah,
Force,
well,
and it's easy to do.
it's like I said to you earlier on, there were certain plot points in this movie that were left so that you went and looked at other forms of media. For example, I
Mm.
didn't know as much as I know about this film now, as well as you do, until you had to read a comic book. You had to read a set of
Yes.
comics to understand Snoke. I had to play a
Mm.
game to understand C-3PO's red arm. I bought the visual dictionary guide to learn names of aliens and stuff, and you just try and. So it felt like this movie was kind of in Disney. Disney are great at selling toys and products and stuff. It felt like product placement to an extent.
Yeah.
Yes, this is the first film, but in order for you to be a true Star Wars fan and understand it, you need to buy this media and watch this film and see this and. To the point that the immersion of the film felt from it being. I felt like this movie, and crucify me for this if you want, guys. I felt like this movie felt like a fan had made it. I felt like this was a fan made movie.
Yeah, well, it's not even that. I wouldn't even say. I don't even know. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, fan. Yeah, the whole trilogy. Yeah, it could feel like that. Like it's
Well,
a
especially
big.
how we had three different directors and there was no
Yeah,
connecting key points
yeah.
throughout.
I don't get like, and I've got to just that I've done my free onto this. Now I could have
Go and check the
retconned
videos
this
out,
to
guys.
things like that. But I did it back to back. This is my story, and I've done stories in the past and all that, and then you have this outline, and it's
You
just
feel like
everything strips.
you feel like
It's
your
just drips
version
and drops.
made more sense to.
No, it's not even my version. It's just how you write. And I always say this, like about Disney, you have the up, you have the down, and then the up, and it's just like three hills. And that's if you watch all three movies, that's their place.
That's the
Even
arc.
with Solo, that's it. Go up, go down, go up, go down. That's it. We're not going to stray from that. We're not going to write it. But okay, that's fine. But you've got to have an A and a Z. How are you going to? You started off with Rey.
How are you going to get from one?
And how are you going to get to wherever?
Yeah.
But they didn't have that. So everything in between is just this.
It didn't connect. So
it's just it's just a mess. It's just a mess because you're trying to build up. Rey needs to be our new Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how are you going to get there?
Yeah,
we just going to go bleh, and hopefully because it's fast paced and action packed, you're going to like it.
I will say one thing in a positive note for this movie. There was some great actual musical set pieces that I enjoyed. Some of my favorite music from this was the attack on Starkiller Base and the final initial fight, not with Finn and Kylo, with Rey and Kylo. The initial music for that, like, it was a great music. Cinema wise, like, you know, the videography of it was filmed fantastically. As much as it, like, I would say the last fight, you could compare it to an anime fight, how the world broke in half with these two essentially having their fight. There were some good scenes. I know we didn't get into any of the cameos, like, for example, Simon Pegg, Daniel Craig, Ed Sheeran was also a stormtrooper as well. I heard someone from Game of Thrones was another one, but then, and Pierce Brosnan, but I was just like, you're not really having cameos, you're just in a...
Anybody walks past the studio and needs to get in, do you want to be in a Star Wars movie? We can put you as a First Order trooper.
If you guys want 10 extra points, leave it in the comment section down below. You might know this as well, but let's not give this away. What is the one voice line that Daniel Craig has in this movie where he plays a First Order trooper? If you know, let me know in the comment section down below. I'll tell you off screen. But yeah. So final thoughts and opinions on this mammoth of a film.
Wow. Well, I think we might have to do that. We should be doing part 2.
Yeah, we'll come back to part 2.
Yeah, let's do a part 2, and then we can talk about oscillators. That's it, an oscillator.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Also, another thing as well, I'll save that for part 2, but I want to talk about how Rey and Han went from, like, he didn't like her, and then in like 2 minutes, he's like, hey, do you want a job? Do you want to join? Do you want to take my position? Do you want my coat? Do you want my jacket? Do you want my boots? It's like, what is going on here? Anyways, guys.
Let's get that part 2.
We'll catch you back in part 2.